Welcome everyone, Dylan Gemelli here today with a brand new video for you. So today we're going to talk about the most underrated steroids. But before we get into that, I have to reiterate that I am not a doctor. Anything I say in these videos is for your entertainment purposes only. What you do with this information is completely and utterly up to you. And I am not advising nor condoning you to run or use any of the things that we discuss in these videos whatsoever. So let's talk about, in my view, what I find to be some of the most underrated steroids out there. There's two that come to mind quicker than any other two. I don't know that I have five that are generally just like so overlooked and overrated. But there are a couple clear cuts that don't really get as much attention as others than maybe they should. And there's reasons why. And I'm going to cover that in detail here. But, you know, I'm going to try my best to give you more, but a couple of them really aren't super underrated, but yet they are a little bit underrated. So let's start with Primobolan. Now, Primobolan doesn't get as much love as it deserves for a few reasons. One is that it's not as profound. So you're using Primobolan and you're expecting a 15 or 20 pound weight gain. That's not going to happen. That's not what it's used for. There's a major turnoff with Primobolan because it's often faked, and I totally understand that, and maybe that's one of the reasons why it doesn't get talked about or used as much. But it's not the best compound for guys that are already pretty big. A lot of those guys will tell you, and rightfully so, that they're not seeing much from it. Well, because their size is so large and because it doesn't give massive strength or massive size, probably not going to feel it as much as a guy my size would, or guys that are more like physique competitors or something like that. You know, guys that are already, you know, extremely large, etc. The best way for them to use it probably is on a bulking cycle where they're trying to keep it as clean as possible, and that'll kind of help in that regard, or maybe to give a little bit of extra endurance or something like that. But and it's not like super known for endurance, but it will help in that regard. But you know, that's part of the reasons why it doesn't get maybe as much love and attention as it deserves, or is not as widely used. But I truly feel that the main reason is because it's fake so often and it's so expensive. That's definitely the main reason. But like I said, it's not as profound, and it's not going to just jump right out and hit you right away. It takes time. You know, I always have boasted that that's my favorite because it's so clean, because it's so progressive, because you're noticing a little bit each week. But like I said, a guy my size is going to notice it a lot more than a much larger guy. So it's just not for everybody, and it's just not used quite as often as many others are, and that's definitely one of, if not the main reason. Proviron. Let me explain, because there are people that love Proviron, and then there's people that say they don't see the purpose, the reason, don't get anything out of it whatsoever. You gotta understand really what Proviron does and what it really specializes in. Now, granted, it will have a little bit of muscle hardening, add a little bit of vascularity, but if you run Proviron on your own, you're not going to notice much of anything at all. You're just not. Now, the reason that it boosts libido is because it can lower your SHBG. Your SHBG also does not need to be high. It needs to be lower because it ties up free testosterone. Now, by lowering that, you know, Proviron allows to free up bound testosterone, which in turn is going to allow you to get more out of your cycle. The more free testosterone you have, the more gains you're going to be able to have. So it indirectly is allowing you to gain more by freeing up this bound testosterone. It's also going to make you feel, you know, more sexual, I guess, by increasing your libido. It's got muscle hardening properties. Now, when people say, oh, it's comparable to Masteron, look, I'm sorry, but it's not going to do nearly as much as Masteron is going to do in terms of muscle hardening and things of that nature. It's just not. But it does have that benefit there. But it's more of like a supporting cast member. All right, it's like the guy on the basketball team that doesn't get as much love, but he just goes out there and just gets every single rebound or whatever, but, you know, it doesn't do everything. But it's supporting the team and making sure the team wins. It's like an additive that really helps you scale further. So, you know, freeing up that bound testosterone, like I said, is going to then allow you to get more out of what you're doing, so it's going to add to your gains. It's not like a direct addition because just freeing up the bound testosterone and running it on its own, you're probably not going to gain a bunch of size, etc. But let's say you're running, I don't know, Anadrol, Deca, something like that. Then you're going to notice you get more out of it than you already would have gotten out of it by adding Proviron into the mix. So Proviron doesn't get the love that it probably deserves. Now the next one, I guess one could say, well, that's not over, not getting the love it deserves or whatever. But Winstrol, and one of the reasons about Winstrol is because people have a predetermined thinking on it that, oh, well, that's going to kill my joints. That's going to drive me out. I can't handle it. Look, it will do that to some people. That is no argument there. But it doesn't do it to everybody. And people that have this predetermined thought that, oh my God, that's going to do it. That's it. I just don't want to use it. They're missing out on the possibility of getting a ton out of it. Winstrol can do a ton. Winstrol is a cutting steroid, but it allows you to get extremely strong, and you can still gain lean muscle on it, to a really nice extent. So in that regard, it's definitely overlooked and underrated because people just are scared to give it a chance because of stories that they've heard, which don't apply to everybody. Like, every single person is different in how they respond and react to certain compounds. And many people do have issues with it, and many people do not. The only way to know that is through trial and error. But a lot of people don't even give it the chance that it should get because of that predetermined notion and thinking. Now, the next two I have a hard time with. I'm going to say T-ball, Turinabol number 2. Look, T-ball, anybody that knows, is always considered D-ball's baby brother or sometimes baby sister. T-ball is not D-ball, all right? Completely different. One, the estrogen conversion there is just not there, and the water retention is not there. You're not going to get the size like you get off of D-ball with it, all right? But with T-ball, you're going to avoid all of the estrogenic side effects. You're going to get extremely strong. You're going to stay dry, and you're still going to have the capability of putting on some size. You're not going to gain 15 or 20 pounds, but who cares? Not everybody wants to gain that much, and not only that, wouldn't you rather gain 8 to 10 and have the ability to keep most of it? I mean, some people don't care. They just want the size right now, and that's all they care about, and they want it immediately. But some people want the long term, and they want to keep it longer, and they want to have an easier recovery, etc. And T-ball gets overlooked far too often. Every kickstart you see is generally D-ball, Anadrol, things of that nature. But then there's people that go, well, I don't want any water retention, but I still want a good kickstart and want to gain some size. But T-ball just fails to get brought up as much as I believe that it should. You got a lower amount of side effects with the chances of still getting extremely strong gains. It's just that comparison to D-ball and that expectation of everybody wanting to gain 15 or 20 pounds, which is just not realistic. So T-ball is definitely right there, neck and neck with number 1, which is equipoise. Why does now there's some people that just stand by equipoise and absolutely love it. Here's the turnoffs. 1, it needs to be ran a little bit longer. And a lot of people don't like to run 14 and 16 week cycles, but to get the most out of it, to run it the most effective, you want to run it that long. But 2 is people are impatient. You have to be patient with equipoise. 6, 8, 9 weeks before you really start to see it working. And that, to me, is the number 1 reason why. Because, look, the side effects are a lot lower than a lot of other steroids. There's still side effects there, just like any other steroids, but they're lower than a Deca, D-ball, an Anadrol. The red blood cell count thing where you got to donate blood and you could have an increased RBC is there. Slight, ever so slight estrogen conversion. Most people use it because they're running, cycles. They want to stay dry. It's really not something that you need to really get overly concerned about. And then the possibility of maybe aggravating some anxiety. But equipoise is one of those things that when people that are patient, they love it. I mean, love it, stand by it. But a lot of people don't have that patience and don't want to run longer cycles. And for that reason, it gets overlooked and it's highly underrated in comparison to others. You don't see it in as many cycle layouts as you always see people going back to Tren, Deca, D-ball. Those are the 3 that you see used the most. Now, everybody's different. I'm sure I'm going to get comments, well, that's not me. I understand that. I'm just saying that I deal with hundreds and thousands of people per week, and I see what the most common things are sent to me, and that's what they are. And that's where I'm basing off of what's underrated and overrated. Look, everybody's different. There's going to be plenty of people that go, well, I use these and I like these. That's great. But I'm talking about taking these large sums and going off of what I see daily. Because trust me, I get bombarded with not only forums, social media, but emails, questions, posts on YouTube, posts here, posts there. So I see it. So that's my list of the most underrated steroids. I'm sure there's people that will agree, and I'm sure there's people that will disagree, but that's the beauty of all of this. So that being said, www.icearms.com/forums. You can also get me on the Evolutionary Forum as well as the Elite Fitness Forum. Dylan at icearms.com is where you can get me with all questions and comments. That being said, stay tuned for plenty more to come. Dylan Gemelli, signing off.